calendar. Bobby, would you call the roll, please?
Cheryl Hentz is absent. Heidi Bassford Kirkhoff.
Here.
Julie Kiefer is excused. Julie Davids.
Here.
Bryn Seaman.
Here.
Patricia Yurovets.
Here.
Julie Maslowski.
Here.
Judy Ritchie.
Here.
Mike Ford.
Here.
Cynthia Thorpe.
Here.
Joanne Murphy Spice.
Here.
Jean Wallerman.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving forward, everyone got a copy of the September meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
No, Cynthia. And second?
I can second.
Bryn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Have you had anyone asking for citizen statements?
None.
Okay. Any public comment? We don't have anyone. Okay, so moving on, we'll start with our presentation. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Susan McFadden, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at UWO. She retired, but not retired, from full-time teaching in 2012, and she continues to teach, and my personal belief is till the day she dies, she's going to be. That is her personality. And she works on research with students. Dr. McFadden is co-founder of the Fox Valley Memory Project in 2012. She has a book, Dementia-Friendly Communities, Why We Need Them and How We Can Create Them. So with that.
Okay, thank you. I like your fancy tech. Okay, well, is this going to be okay? Yeah. All right, well, I am delighted to be here today back in Oshkosh. I had kind of forgotten what it was like to drive down 41 in the morning. I live in Appleton, so it's very, very nice to be here. And I chose this title, working with Julie, post-pandemic, and I put it in quotes before I knew Julie had COVID, and because, of course, we are not post-pandemic. So I'll say more about that in a few minutes. So let me see here. I think if I press that one, yes. So do any of you remember Oshkosh 2000? Yay! One person remembers Oshkosh 2000. So I moved to Wisconsin in 1983 and was hired at the university in 1985. And it was not too long after that that I met David Green. Y'all know David Green? Some of you know David Green. And David and some other leaders in Oshkosh had put together this group called Oshkosh 2000 that was trying to conceptualize what Oshkosh would look like as a city good for older adults and good for people aging into later life in the year 2000. Now, if you can remember back to 1985, 1986, the year 2000 seemed unimaginable, didn't it? It seemed, you remember Y2K? Yeah. This idea of Oshkosh 2000 was really innovative. And I don't know what happened to any of the records because, of course, back in, 1985, we didn't, all people didn't have websites, right? And so I've searched around to try to find information about what this committee did, and I haven't been able to find it. So maybe if one of you can come up with a little history, you might learn a few things. So I just wanted to remind you about that, and I will return to that in a minute. So, post-pandemic, not so sure about that. Mm-hmm. What have we learned about COVID-19, and especially about older adults? Well, we are still learning. But here are a few things that are coming out. I collect research articles on older adults through the pandemic. They started coming out late 2020 through 2021 now. The data that gets published are collected, many months rather before the publication finally comes out. So it's going to be a while till we really get a full sense of this, just like it's going to be a while till we get a full sense of what it's been like for students, college students, high school students, elementary, etc. But here are a few things we know about older people. That although people 65 and older are about 16% of the whole population, 75% of all the deaths from COVID were among older adults. And I know some of you work in long-term care, and you know all too well what that was like. So one of the things that just keeps coming out in the research, I have a big file on COVID-19 and loneliness. Social distancing measures were good for us because they protected us, hopefully, from getting infected, but they were bad for us because we need other people, and it produced tremendous social isolation and loneliness among people of all ages, especially older people. And loneliness, we know, is associated with anxiety and depression. And there's now a lot of research that's coming out about this. And I've been looking particularly at the research on care partners for people living with dementia. And just in general, the toll that this loneliness has taken on people's physical health. So this is something that the research is just accumulating on this, what has happened to people. And of course, we know that many older adults lacked access to social communication because they had no tech. And I want to say that Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Senior Center, had a grant from Bader Philanthropies, and we're going to have a meeting next week soon with Bader. Bader Philanthropies down in Milwaukee had a nice big grant that they distributed to a number of different organizations in northeast Wisconsin, including the Oshkosh Senior Center, which was to look at the way that technology might improve older adults' lives. But first, you had to teach them how to use it. And you've been doing a great job. And I've been part of this research too with another team, and it's just been wonderful to hear the response of older people desiring this knowledge to be able to communicate with their friends and family members, etc. But it hasn't reached everybody, as we know. So, is it time to revisit the goals of Oshkosh 2000? Well, maybe we better find out what those goals were. If somebody can round up an old, paper file, because it doesn't appear to be on the web. Is it time to look again at what those visionary leaders in this city were thinking about for older people in the 21st century? I think it might be time. So this is something that I found recently online, and this is your city, Oshkosh. This comes from ARP, which is formerly the American Association of Retired Persons, but then they decided just to call it ARP. So they have had this program on age-friendly communities for some time. It was prompted by the World Health Organization. That talked about cities and communities around the world being more age-friendly. And I'll show you a slide in a minute that will illustrate that. So in the United States, ARP kind of grabbed this idea and started talking about age-friendly communities. They've kind of changed that language a little bit. It's now livable communities, but whatever, we know what we're talking about here. And this is Oshkosh's score. You can see that the city of Oshkosh is getting into the green. It's better than half of all the other communities that they've looked at. So whether you know it or not, the city of Oshkosh has carried forward some of those ideals that were generated by the Oshkosh 2000 people. Speaking as somebody who lives in Appleton, I have tremendous Oshkosh Senior Center envy. And I started working with the Oshkosh Senior Center when I first came to the university in the mid-'80s, and you have an amazing resource in this city. And I won't say any more because you know it. So this is how ARP ranks you, and then this is their scoring for the city of Oshkosh. And you can see that you are above the national average in everything except engagement. But on all the other metrics that ARP uses for livable or age-friendly cities, you are above the national average. So I think that's a really good thing, and obviously you could probably do better. So that's what I think your group is all about here, right? So I think that's really interesting, and you can find this on the ARP website where they're talking about age-friendly or livable cities. So age-friendly communities, wherever they are, they tell a new story about aging. You know, the old story about aging is pretty doom and gloom. And we know there is still tremendous ageism out there. And that's probably something that you talk about in your committee. But this new story, let's take a look at what this might look like. The old story is, okay, I'm just going to grow old in a nursing home, and it's going to smell bad, and nobody's going to come and visit me, and it's going to be dark and horrible. And that's the fear in the old story, right? And it's still out there. The dream about this story is, I'm just gonna go like crazy. I'm gonna run a marathon, and I'm gonna have a party, and I'm gonna do all this when I'm 80 or 85, and then I'm gonna drop dead. That's called the compression of morbidity. That is, we're just gonna go, and then the morbidity will come quickly and take us to death. But that is not what happens. But that's the dream that everybody has. The nightmare is not that I'm going to age in place and be happy and run marathons, but that I'm going to be stuck in place. I'm going to be stuck in this house, and the only bathroom is on the second floor, and I'm all by myself now, and my neighbors have moved, and I don't know any of my neighbors anymore, and I'm having trouble getting around, and yet I can't let go of all my stuff. But when I think about moving, I get paralyzed because I can't let go of all my stuff. You may have heard this story before. But the new hope is that we might age with joy and dignity in our communities, that old age can be a positive time of life despite its many challenges, and that we will have a sense of dignity because our age will be honored, and our role in the community will be honored, and we will live in an age-friendly, livable Oshkosh. So what does that look like? This, again, comes from the World Health Organization. It's when they first started talking about what it would look like to be age-friendly, and you can see the various kinds of aspects of this that they identified: housing, social participation, respect and social inclusion, etc. If you remember the slide that I showed you a couple minutes ago from Oshkosh itself, it was that social participation, that inclusion part that was a little less than half for the other metrics that they are using. But the outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation. You know, how many times have you talked about transportation in this committee? I bet you've talked about it a bunch, because every meeting I ever go to where people put newsprint on the wall and Post-its, and it's transportation is a real challenge. So this all goes together to make what the World Health Organization and then ARP have defined as an age-friendly community. But here's the $64 question. Does age-friendly equal dementia-friendly? Maybe not so much. I think there is still splitting going on. Oh, those people that have some type of dementia, we're sorry for them, but we really don't want to have much to do with them. And then the people who are running the marathons, okay? So what does this mean? Well, we need to tell a news story not only about aging, but we need to tell a news story about dementia. And so I'm going to just run through this quickly about why we need it, who's going to tell it, how will it be told, etc., to give you some ideas on how you might merge those ideas of being age-friendly, which you already are doing a pretty good job of, and dementia-friendly. So why do we need this new story? Well, we need it because people are so terrified of dementia. And you can see this study from MetLife Foundation came out a few years ago that people fear dementia more than heart disease and stroke and cancer, et cetera. And when you combine that fear with a lack of knowledge, you get stigma. And when you have stigma, you have withdrawal. You have, people pull back. I don't know what to say to him anymore. He's not the person he once was. I just want to remember her as she was. If I hear that one more time. But people say that, right? I just want to remember her like she was. In other words, it's too scary for me to get to know her in this new state of having some type of dementia. And so we get stigma. So this is why we need a new story, because dementia has been called a disease of exclusion. People pull away. And who's going to tell this new story? Well, interestingly, my first point here is the people who are experiencing memory loss. The baby boomers, as you might know, are a rather noisy cohort. They're not like their parents and grandparents. They do speak up. And many now are moving into later life, and some of them are developing some type of dementia, and they are starting to speak up about what they need and want from their communities. They are not going to go quietly into that dark night. They're going to wear T-shirts that say, "I have Alzheimer's, deal with it." So people experiencing memory loss, there are tons of websites out there, there are chat groups, there are Facebook pages, etc., where people living with some type of dementia and their care partners are talking to each other, and they are telling a new story. Family members and friends are also, and then people who work with folks diagnosed with dementia are telling this new story. So that's who's telling the story, lots of people. And how's this story going to be told? Well, many different ways, but one of them is through social media. I just mentioned that there are Facebook pages. That's how I first learned about memory cafes. It was from a Facebook page in like 2011, very early on. But the social media now is starting to really build up in terms of people talking with each other about what it's like to live with not just Alzheimer's disease, but Lewy body disease and frontotemporal dementia, et cetera, et cetera. So where are people going to hear this new story about dementia? Well, hopefully in lots of different places. Hopefully we will be educating our students about dementia. I have taught this about a month and a half ago. I taught a whole bunch of high school classes about dementia. They're interested, these students. My college students, they took a whole 14-week seminar on dementia. They signed up for it. They wanted to take this class. Schools, religious organizations are getting on board, certainly in popular media, social media, et cetera. And then hopefully your local, state, and national governments will be telling this new story too. And it's being told all around the world. This is not just something happening in the United States. This is international. And as I said, starting with the World Health Organization. So what is the new story going to tell us? It's going to tell us that dementia is a disability. I pause. That's a new way of thinking about dementia. Dementia is a disability that is best addressed with patience and kindness. And we can create dementia-friendly communities just as we create age-friendly communities. We include people with dementia. That's my first point. Always, you need to have people with dementia and their care partners sitting at the table when you design programs. You educate people, you remove the barriers to getting around and social life, you care for care partners, you provide good diagnoses and programs and services. And when will this new story be told? Now. The end. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Dr. McFadden?
Go ahead. I can tell you when to speak.
I was just going to ask, when did the disability versus disease, when did that start happening? I've not heard that before. That's really interesting.
That is something that is emerging now, and it's aligned with efforts to raise the idea of citizenship of people living with some type of dementia. They are still part of our community. Dementia is a progressive condition, right? But even as it progresses, we can find ways to have them involved in our community. So they are citizens. And then people who are studying human rights, like the UN Charter on Human Rights, they're starting to look at that in light of how we treat people with dementia. And so it is now being talked about as a disability. And see how that kind of shifts the way we think? Okay? We're used to addressing disabilities. We put curb cuts on sidewalks. How terrific. And it helps everybody. I think it would help everybody if we addressed dementia as a disability. Good question. Yes?
In your experience in dealing with dementia, what have you learned regarding, say, a tipping point? Because I know people who are dealing with someone with dementia.
Oh, sure. We all do.
Yeah. And what is a tipping point? Because, you sit there and as a healthcare person background, one of my first things is always safety. Mm-hmm. And so, when is it impossible to keep that person at home, and when will they need a more protective environment? Have you learned anything about some points that you need to be, because it's so individualized?
That's the point. When you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. And that's the issue. It's so individualized because we bring ourselves to old age, right? We have a history, we have a personality, we have resources or we don't have resources. We have a history of health problems or not. So it's so different for everyone. So it's really a hard question. There's no absolute on that. And of course, it depends on family support and community support, et cetera. Yeah.
Bryn?
Well, I was just gonna kind of share a little bit because you hit on so many points that I've in the past few years have been familiar with. So age-friendly communities is something that Oshkosh and the surrounding areas is working on in partnership with AARP. And Nicole, I think it was in September or maybe it was in August, came to speak a little bit about that. She's one of the supervisors at the ADRC. And I was very impressed with the city of Oshkosh and the surrounding areas. There was roughly between 350 to 380 responses for that survey about giving input so that they had the say in building that. And then the other thing I guess the reason I'd share that, so that if you're interested in participating in an age-friendly or dementia-friendly community work, I know that those meetings still go on and it's part of a larger plan. So let me know if you're interested and I can get you connected with Nicole. The other thing too is BOLD, and I know that Fox Valley Memory Project is a big partner in that because I sit in a couple of subgroups, and I think BOLD, and correct me if I'm wrong, is building our largest dementia infrastructure, or our largest, dementia infrastructure. I can't remember exactly what the BOLD grant is, but there's a lot of discussion and work precisely around a lot of the talking points you shared, the kind of breaking down of stigma and where are people going to get that information and how are they going to give input into how I feel and how I'm going to be treated with dignity as I kind of go through this progression of the disability, not disease. So I would just offer those 2 points if there is any interest or excitement wanting to be involved in those, both locally at an age-friendly level and then at a statewide BOLD grant level. Those are 2 opportunities
Great.
as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Glad to
Thank
hear it.
you.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any examples or know of any programs that have been developed to get the generations together? Because a few of the old people like me that get together, what we always see is that we don't like the isolation of putting everybody out at our beautiful Evergreen facility or at Bella Vista and keeping them away. I think what we do best is when we're together.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a neighbor that has Lewy body, and she's 92 years old. And the best treatment for her is when the 8-year-old boys and my grandkids take her out in the backyard, and they have her playing soccer.
Yay.
And
That's
she'll
fantastic.
go up and down,
Sure.
and I say, they're really a physical therapist for that.
Right,
But I
exactly.
just
That's,
think it's so beneficial. So,
Yes.
have there been some successful communities
Oh,
where
yes.
we can get those together? Because that's what I really would love to see in Oshkosh.
yeah, absolutely. So Evergreen used to collaborate with the child daycare center, and they actually had the daycare center in the building. I remember that a long time ago, and residents would come down and volunteer with the kids. But then Evergreen needed the room for something else, and they changed that. So yeah, these models are emerging because this idea of well, I'm sure it's true in Oshkosh. It's certainly true up in Appleton, Neenah, Menasha. I mean, these places are popping up like mushrooms, right? Every time you turn around, there's a new memory care going up, assisted living, et cetera. And what we're doing basically is putting the old people away. And, how often does the general public, go in there? Or how often do the residents, come out and interact in the community? So we definitely need to get creative about this, and some places are doing it, absolutely. Whether they are putting daycare centers together with senior care, or whether they are developing intergenerational models, or one of the interesting things happening is having college students live in long-term care communities. This is happening down in UW Milwaukee, where art students get stipends to live in long-term care and bring their art enthusiasms and knowledge to the residents, and then they get room and board. So there are some creative things that are happening out there. We need a lot more.
An article that I just read, and I had seen something in a couple of years ago too, and I can't remember which Eastern country it was, but they actually, the staff, as they have their babies and their young children, bring them into the facility, and the residents help to provide the care.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're getting care from, whether it's a newborn infant to a preschooler.
Uh-huh.
And so that there's some really creative things being done, not necessarily here, but we can
We could
learn from.
copy it, right.
Absolutely.
I have a friend who was with a long-term care organization in Kentucky, and it, had a number of nursing homes, and she developed a summer camp for staff children at these long-term care communities because, we don't pay the staff very well and they're kind of stuck in the summer if they've got little kids at home. And so she developed like day camps at the long-term care communities. And of course, the residents were volunteering and helping with it. And it was brilliant. Yeah. So we can get creative. Thank you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but
Are there
appreciate
any
your
other questions or concerns or comments?
No, I would just make the comment that pre-COVID, I think Bella Vista and other communities were doing a really good job at bringing in intergenerational
Sure.
Activities to the communities, but then COVID hit and
Yep.
it was like your world stopped.
Yes.
And it was like trying to find solutions on how to still have those interactions take place. And I think slowly but surely we're getting back to having those intergenerational activities happen. Like I just recently reached out to elementary schools to invite them in for trick or treating, and they were
Nice.
still on the kind of the fence about coming in. But I think slowly but surely we're getting back to some more and more of that. So
Good.
Yeah.
And hopefully then thinking new things to do.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Great.
listening to you today has kind of sparked me again to go back and think about what I used to do and how we can pick up from there.
Good.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's not just in the facilities. That's happening in our churches.
Huh?
I live in a 55 and up building, and over the last 2.5 years, as people have moved out, we don't know the new people moving in. And in the meantime, the rest of us are aging
Yes.
and missing the card games, the monthly socials, and all of the things that were done. So, and even people that I know that are living in their own homes are feeling more isolated.
Yes.
So it's not just, and that's probably not the best word, but it's not only limited to, people with dementia, people with certain other disabilities or anything. It's
Right.
all of us.
That's right.
And we see people like our own Julie, who has been so careful, has been working from home,
Yep.
as Levi with some of his extra needs, so careful, and yet she's become a target of this
Yeah.
nasty COVID.
Right. Yep.
And
And it's going to be with us a while longer. Yes.
it's going to be stalking us for a long time.
Yes.
So I think that would be a good time for our friend from the health department to put a plug in.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you very much. Okay, moving on, is there any old business? Any new business? Other business, upcoming community events for older adults. And Julie is not here, but she'd asked me to announce, and Andy, if you can put that other piece up on screen. She was hoping to announce the Learning and Retirement is inviting the community to an upcoming event at the UWO Culver Center on Thursday, November 10th. Former Governor Tommy Thompson will be speaking about his career in public service. The event is free and open to the public. Registration is requested for planning purposes by emailing lir@uwosh.edu or calling 920-424-0876. And we did have a flyer that was supposed to go up on screen.
Right there.
Okay, I was looking over this other one. So, and that, I think that would be very interesting. And certainly he's had, both as a governor and as he served with the university system, it was definitely an eye-opener for him. So definitely a good event to attend. We'll go around the table. Julie?
I don't have anything today.
Bryn?
I do. Today is November 1st, so it is officially National Family Caregivers Month. So this is kind of my world. I come with lots of gifts today. So the first thing that I'll share is a paper copy of our marketing toolkit. But please know you can go to the GWAR website, and actually you can go to the Respite Care Association of Wisconsin too to get all of this. And we tried to make it easy so that if you follow us on social media, or if you don't, maybe you could, repost so that it's all there, and then each day you get several different things to share out, and kind of like your point about how are we going to share this information, how are we going to support individuals who are older or have disabilities or who are ill and their caregivers. We've got to tell them that there are supports out there that exist. And so that's the first thing I'm going to share. If this isn't in your wheelhouse or anything you feel like you can directly have impact on, certainly feel free to share. We've divided up each of the weeks in different categories. So the first theme is helping caregivers to identify that they actually are caregivers. Many folks just recognize that this is an obligation, this is something I fell into, or this is my responsibility from early on. I knew I was going to be doing this, so they don't fully recognize themselves as caregivers. The second week of the theme is relatives and grandparents as caregivers, which is an increasing population. Aunts, uncles, and grandparents caring for relative children. The third week is employed family caregivers, and there's some jarring statistics that if we were to just look at employees 55 and older and their needs as they're raising maybe their own grandchildren or still their children, and also helping with the care of a loved one, the amount, trillions of dollars that nationally we're saving. So if we are able to support them, not only does it have positive impacts in our economy and for those employers, but certainly for the employed caregivers. And then lastly, the week theme is underserved communities. So we have information about many different minorities and underserved populations, as well as rural and LGBTQ plus, also trying to help professionals do this engagement piece of reaching out. So not just translating material, which is helpful, but are they at the local senior center? Are they at the local Hmong center? Are professionals going out in the community and sharing that information? So there's some professional resources there. This is an article that I had a hand in writing. This is not my forte, but I think it does, with some help, really paint a good landscape of what family caregivers experience in a day-to-day life and world, and that can easily too be shared out on social media. And these last three I won't talk much about, except to say that they're available here in Winnebago County in the city of Oshkosh through our Aging and Disability Resource Center. One is the Alzheimer's and Family Caregiver Support Program. There are income limits and requirements for that grant program. However, if that is an issue, there's also the National Family Caregiver Support Program. So these are grants that are housed at our EDRC right here in Winnebago County. So if you are a family caregiver, you're just first recognizing you are a family caregiver. If you know somebody who is, please, please, please share these resources. Caregiver support groups are free of charge, they're empowering, and then typically that becomes a connection to other things, kinship programs, other resources, transportation, and the like. So I will be quiet. I know I've taken a lot of time, but if you have any questions, or if you want to follow us on social media, I certainly should have marked that down, but it's Wisconsin Family Caregiver on Facebook. So if you just type in Wisconsin Family Caregiver, it should come up. And then we also have a website that I help behind the scenes to upload information on called wisconsincaregiver.org. Thank you. That was a lot.
Mike?
Mine's going to be less impressive, but it's budget season, so if you have a chance, Oshkosh Media has the latest city manager report where Mark Roloff gives a nice overview of the budget process and the current kind of state of the Oshkosh budget. And then tomorrow at 5 p.m. is the public hearing right here in the room, 4th floor, City Hall. So if folks are interested in seeing where their money's going, please come tomorrow night at 5 p.m. and let us know what you think we should prioritize.
Joanne?
We're still doing vaccinations at Sunnyview on Wednesdays from 1 to 6. Most of our nurses are out doing flu vaccinations at the schools and things like that, but you can get a flu shot and a COVID vaccine on the same day if you want. And the Omicron, the boosters for the Omicron variants are out, so I strongly suggest that anybody that's worried gets a booster shot. It's still very low numbers, I think, of people in the community that are doing that. Unfortunately, with all the media stuff that's out there. I'm going to piggyback with you, Bryn, for a second. One of the, I'm not a nurse, right? Everybody knows that my job is education. One of the classes that comes through the Wellness Plus, but goes through the ADRC, is called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. And it is a class, and the ADRC will provide respite for that, but it is a class geared for people that is not their job, paid job, but giving them support and giving them some tools to deal with the stress of being a caregiver and sometimes feeling very isolated when you are a caregiver. So I'm piggybacking off of that one. As far as our classes go, this is usually my lowest time is right now until like March when people feel like driving again outside. And with the holidays, they don't want classes. And I realize we have 7 of them going on right now, which is absolutely fantastic and speaks to me of the fact that people have been starving to engage with each other since COVID, because I've never had this many classes in a November before. And when you were talking, I was thinking of some of that. We have 4 Strong Bodies classes going on in the county right now, and 3 of them have doubled in size since June. And so I was trying to figure out why, and so I was asking the class, and they said, well, they know they could do the exercises at home. It is the camaraderie of these groups. I mean, we sing and we dance in them. I mean, we have a ball. And that if you're not there, people want to know where you are and what's happened. And it is that they have been starving for. And so these classes are starting to double in size that meet regularly, because it's a safe space to come where people will care about me, and I work out, so it's just, we're really seeing an increase in things like that. We have a falls prevention class going on at the Oshkosh Senior Center, stepping on right now. This is an anecdotal thing, but I'm teaching a Tai Chi for arthritis and falls prevention class at the Senior Center in Menasha. And the first day I'm teaching it, one of the things I made them do is go around the room and smile at each other and introduce themselves. And 2 people who were childhood grade school friends who hadn't seen each other in 40 years were in the class together and hooked up. And they were hugging. I started crying because it was really neat. So to keep doing these programs that, can get people together, which is why I absolutely love the Oshkosh Senior Center. I'm walking through there and there's like 6 tables of people playing cards, and it's just super, super neat. And I think that engagement with each other just keeps us so much healthier. And so I'm really happy for that. So I don't have a lot to say, except we got a lot of classes going on. And if you want a class, let me know. We've got lots of good ones. And I am speaking to the state ombudsman volunteer group next week, like 60 people. On falls, I'm going to do Tai Chi and just trying to get that stuff out to long-term care facilities. So that's what we're doing.
And I'm going to make a couple of comments. Number 1, Joanne, with what you're doing at State Street Center is wonderful. It's the drop-in center for folks with mental illness and addiction recovery and everything. And Julie said, you're making a big difference in those lives.
Oh, thank you.
And I actually got to see Joanne in action one day.
Oh, just so you know, we changed that date because I got roped into doing Tai Chi and Monash on Thursdays. So if they want to drop in, and it's free to anybody, and you can be a senior and drop in, come on down Tuesdays at 2:00, and you can do Tai Chi for free.
Also, talk to me after the meeting. I think I have an in for you for one of your classes that we had talked about before.
Very good. Oh, and I think Strong Bodies is probably coming to Briarwood Cottages
Right.
this month,
With
because
new
we're training somebody from there.
with new ownership and with Carol as the new manager. Yes.
Carol's getting
Please.
trained Friday.
And Joanne will also be doing a workshop, exercise with the Altrusa District Conference in May. Because we wanted somebody that had energy, enthusiasm, and get the ladies up moving. So
Sing and dance.
she's getting very popular.
That's fun.
So, anyway, Julie,
I don't
good
have.
to have you back.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
thank you,
welcome
thank you. I don't have anything today, so.
Pat,
Yep, nothing for me, thanks.
Heidi?
I do have a couple of things. Going back to scam alerts, since I'm really big on fraud and elder abuse. This one I received from the Better Business Bureau, and I've also had some friends where this has actually happened too. So it's responding to that phony bank text, and it could cost you thousands. One of the scammer's favorite tactics is impersonating a person or an organization you know and trust. That premise of this new text message scam, which has been popping up recently, the Better Business Bureau Scam Tracker reports. This time, com artists are impersonating your bank. How this scam works. You receive a text message from a fraud alert from your bank, or I've even seen it with Google and Amazon. Did you approve a transaction for $1,000 or $568? They come up with lots of different numbers. Reply yes or no. And if you reply to the text, then the scammer knows that you are an active number and a person to the scam. So the scam doesn't end there. The scammer will call you to follow up, and the number will appear caller ID like it's coming from your bank. When you answer, the caller claims to be the bank representative to help you stop the fraudulent charges. And to do so, you need to send money to yourself using Zelle or another digital wallet app. The caller walks you through the process of connecting the app to your bank account. Then they ask you to verify the connection by sharing the code your bank sent. Don't do it. If you give the scammer your verification code, the scammer can set up an account with your phone number and email, but their bank account information. If that happens, you send money to yourself, but you're actually sending the money to the scammer. Disputing the charges will be difficult because the scammer has tricked you into approving this transaction. Sending money through a digital wallet app is like using cash, making it very, very hard to get your money back. How to spot this scam. Don't reply to suspicious text. Ignore any instructions to reply yes or no if you receive an unsolicited or suspicious text message. If you reply to a scammer, they could save your number as an active person and target you with future scams. Watch out for fake caller IDs. Scammers can spoof caller ID names and numbers to make you think you are receiving a call from a reputable source. If you weren't expecting to be contacted by your bank, it's best to avoid answering. Instead, call the number on the back of your ATM card to confirm that there's an issue or your bank. Never share one-time passcodes. Scammers can use one-time passcodes from your bank or any other company to access your accounts and change information. Do not share them with anyone. No exceptions. And something else that I've been getting phone calls as, can you hear me? Or do you know, something they'll ask you a question when you first pick up for you to answer yes or no. And don't ever answer yes, always hang up. That's continuing to go around as well. And just something I want to point out is that scam perpetrated online has risen 87% since 2015. So there's a lot going on out there, a lot going on our phones. Please be careful. Don't answer the phone if you don't know who's calling you. That's another big one that I am seeing with the people I serve.
Jean, anything from the senior center?
Yeah, our newsletter, obviously, you guys can see a lot of the programs that we're offering. People in the community can go on to the city website and find all of our newsletters under the senior services. We are in the works with Winnebago County to bring back the meal program. So hopefully in December, we have some obstacles right now on rooms and programs, et cetera. So hopefully in December, we'll be starting the meal program back again at the center after 2.5 years, I believe. And our falls prevention program with the fire department, we have tested around 15 individuals so far. And we have found 2 with severe falls risk, and working with them to get into programs, get more active, identify, the reasons why they're possibly at a high risk. And one individual with a spouse has started to come to some of our exercise classes. So that machine that the fire department purchased has been a wonderful tool to help individuals to identify that they may be at high risk of falls. So that's been going strong and will probably get stronger as months go on. So
Thank you. One of the things I'd sort of like to piggyback with that, again, where I live, we've got a number of residents who are falling with some regularity. And many times there's a knock on the neighbor's door, can you help get the person up? And there are 3 of us in the building that are trying to get it through to everybody. Number 1, we do not pick up. We don't pick up because we could hurt the individual that fell. We don't know what precipitated the fall. We don't know how they're injured. And we ourselves could be injured. And that litany goes on. We don't want the ambulance, and we don't want this, and we don't want our family to know. And those falls happen more and more frequently then because they're not getting the appropriate help. And I admit I spend more time in front of the computer than I do walking the halls or anything, but I'm still pretty stable, but work on my exercises for that. And I see the ones that are more active in the building also doing more of those things, but individually yet, because we're not getting in the bigger groups. I want to thank Ron Durkop, one of our former members, who spent the day with me for the Senior Expo. He loves greeting the public and talking with people and sharing information. We had lots of people getting the Senior Resource Directory from us. We spent a lot of time talking about advanced directives, whether it be for healthcare or financial. People kind of want to avoid the ADRC because that's the government. But they see us because they've seen us on screen, they know us from the community otherwise. So what we're doing is just disseminating the information that is already there with the other groups, or we basically will take them to a particular agency or program and stand with them and help them, with the questions that they want to ask to get the information they need and things like that. So even though it was not as many vendors or probably not as many people coming through, we thought it was a successful day. Also, I had an opportunity, remember we had Dave Green here a couple years ago talking about the new village that Evergreen was going to build out off 9th Street, Linden Oaks. I got to tour one of the homes last week, and a lady from my church had moved from out on Lake Winnebago, and now has one of the retention ponds out her back door. So I was teasing her, she still has waterfront property. But it's also, she has the privacy that she wanted, but she also has neighbors a little bit closer by. She can maintain her privacy, but there's so much more opportunity for safe walking. There's the little community center and everything. It's a good compromise for a lot of folks. I would go nuts there. I like being in an apartment building, but there are more and more opportunities as we age to have those compromises in life. So I think Evergreen did a great job there. And then, as a reminder, the election next Tuesday, early voting goes through Friday, and that same friend that I was with the other day, because she had been in the rural area, brought her in. We got her driver's license changed to the new address. We got her registered to vote in the city. She did early voting. There was quite the line down there, but in the clerk's office. But they're doing a great job of getting people moved through, of registering. In fact, Linden Oaks, they can't use my, mygov.org.
Yeah.
They can't use that because those addresses out there don't show up yet. And so the process was good, and Janet and her family were pleased at the entire process of how we could get that all done without lots of confusion and everything. So they're doing a good job. People should remember, and no drop box. People should not leave their ballots in the box downstairs here at City Hall. They need to come into the building. They need to, if they're doing the absentee ballot dropping off, they need to make sure that all the information is correct and complete. Lots of little details in there. But again, the office down there has been very good, very, very informative, very patient. So kudos to them. Anything else for the good of the group? Okay. Well, our next meeting date is December 6th, and we will be having a speaker from for the hearing impaired with the Captel phones and be able to do the better communication. And that doesn't have to be just for the severely hearing impaired. Sometimes there's other confusion, and same folks that use the closed captioning on TV would benefit from it. So with that, I'll take a motion to approve, adjourn.
So moved.
Mike, and second? Objections? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.